Slowly but surely, the evening sky turned darker as our old car drove towards the remote countryside. I sat in the back seat with my little sister, Sarah, while my father carefully navigated the narrow and winding roads. Our destination was our grandmother's house deep in the hinterland, a place we hadn't visited since the death of our grandfather 5 years ago. We arrived at the house as night began to replace the day. Grandma's house looked like a building that had gone through tough times. Its paint had faded, and the wood looked rotten with age. The dim street lights made the atmosphere even more eerie. Our grandmother, an old woman with wrinkles, welcomed us with a warm smile at the front door. However, there was something strange about that smile, as if it concealed an unexpected darkness. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I saw her sharp gaze, as if hiding unspoken dark secrets. "Welcome, my children," greeted Grandma with her characteristic hoarse voice. We entered the house, which was filled with the scent of ages past. Inside, dim lights flickered faintly, illuminating the gloomy rooms. I felt uncomfortable as we walked through the narrow and dusty corridors. "Your rooms are upstairs," Grandma said, her smile reappearing, this time feeling even more mysterious. After a simple dinner, we hurried to our rooms upstairs. The room felt cold and damp, with an unpleasant odor. Despite this, we tried to make ourselves comfortable and soon lay down on the beds. However, I found it difficult to sleep. Strange noises echoed around the house, like eerie whispers or echoing footsteps in the dark hallways. Every time I was about to drift off, the sounds would disturb me, keeping me awake. Several hours passed without my realizing it, until I was awakened by the sound of approaching footsteps outside the bedroom door. With a pounding heart, I sat up in bed listening intently. The footsteps grew closer, and I could feel fear creeping over me. Suddenly, the bedroom door swung open with a terrifying creak. I almost screamed as I saw the dark figure standing in the doorway. It was like a masked figure emerging from the darkness, with eyes gleaming like coals. "What are you doing here?" the figure asked in a hoarse voice that pierced my chest. I couldn't speak, too shocked to utter a word. Sarah cowered beneath the blankets, trembling with fear. "It's time for you to leave," the figure hissed before disappearing into thin air. We quickly ran to the living room, seeking out our father and grandmother. They were startled awake, wondering what had happened. I recounted the incident to them, but they remained silent, as if knowing something I didn't. "Father, grandmother, who was that figure?" I asked, trembling. They exchanged glances before my father finally spoke with a serious tone. "You shouldn't know about this. It's something buried in your grandmother's past." I looked at my grandmother, searching for answers in her dark gaze. But she remained silent, as if silenced by the dark secrets locked away in her mind. That night, we slept in the living room, feeling too uncomfortable to return to our rooms upstairs. I was awakened several times by strange noises echoing throughout the house, but I forced myself to remain calm, ignoring the fear that continued to haunt me. The next morning, we sat in the dining room, trying to explain what had happened the night before. My father finally revealed the dark past of our grandmother. "When your grandmother was young, she was involved in a terrible incident in this village," my father said, his voice trembling. "There was a young woman who lived here, beautiful and kind-hearted. However, she became the victim of a heinous revenge by a man who couldn't handle rejection." I listened with bated breath, feeling tense about what my father would reveal next. The man set fire to the woman's house with her inside, and since then, it's said that her spirit haunts that house, seeking revenge on anyone who dares to set foot there. My grandmother's face turned pale, and I could see the fear emanating from her eyes. It was a secret she had kept for years, and now the woman's vengeful spirit had returned to haunt her. We decided to leave our grandmother's house immediately, even though the sky was still bright. No one wanted to stay in a place inhabited by a vengeful. But before we could leave, we heard footsteps in the hallway. We turned around quickly, only to find the same figure as the night before, but this time, It was holding something horrifying. "You can't leave," it said, with a voice that echoed throughout the house. "You must pay for your grandmother's sins." It threw something towards us, a human head that was crushed beyond recognition. I almost vomited at the sight, but my fear rendered me unable to move. "Let's go, now!" my father shouted, pulling us all out of the house quickly. We ran as fast as we could, leaving our grandmother's house behind us. I never saw that figure again, but I was sure that the woman's spirit still haunted the house, waiting for an opportunity to wreak havoc on anyone who dared to set foot there. We left the village with heavy hearts, carrying our grandmother's dark secret with us. And since then, I could never forget that night, when buried revenge rose from the grave and haunted us with unimaginable cruelty.